things are not always as they are perceived. The same is true, I believe, in leadership. Sometimes I think we blow leadership up to be this big, overwhelming type of thing, and in fact, I truly believe that leadership is simple. It's very hard, but it's simple. I think the concepts of leadership are simple, and I think there are some simple things that we can begin to do, even though they're hard, starting tomorrow to become a better leader. That's my whole goal. And I found that basically, people will follow you for two basic reasons. Now, there's lots of peripheral issues on why they might follow you, but there's two basic reasons on which people will follow you, in which they will make their decisions, either conscious or subconscious, on whether or not they are going to allow you to influence them. See, everybody makes a decision. Your followers are constantly making decisions, whether they're conscious or subconscious. Am I going to allow this person to influence me, or to what degree am I going to allow this person to influence me? The two primary reasons that I found, and other people have confirmed with me, on which people make this decision on whether others will be allowed to influence them, two things. Number one, your skills. People want to know that your skills are further ahead of them because they want to become like you. They want to move toward you. They want to grow into that same level in which your skills have grown to. The second reason is your character. People will follow you based on your skills and your character. And it cannot be one without the other. Now think about that for a moment. What if you have tremendous character and bad skills? What are you? You're a nice guy. I might invite you over to the Super Bowl, watch the party with me, watch the game with me, eat chips with me. I might invite you over for dinner. I might let you watch my kids. But you're probably not going to be a leader, because I'm always going to have this question about your skills. Great character, wonderful person, great human being, probably not a leader. What if, on the other hand, you have tremendous skills and very poor character? What are you? You're basically a charlatan. Now, the insidious thing about this matchup here is that you will be able to lead for a while, because people will follow your skills for a while, but eventually the undercurrent or the rotting of the character underneath will make those people, even though your skills are good, will make them basically say, I don't know. I don't know about that person. I don't know if I trust that person. Because isn't the agreement between a leader and a follower, I will take you here. And the follower has to make a decision. Will he really take me there? Will she really take me there? Is he really telling the truth? Is she really telling the truth? Can that person really take me there? And it comes down to a trust issue. Do they trust your character? Let's start with the skills. Now, the first skill set that we're going to talk about is communication. Now, you might say, well, that's something that everybody says, and what do you mean by communication? There's something very specific that I want to talk to you about in regard to communication. Most of you who are leaders are go-getters. That's what I found about leaders. They're go-getters. One of the things about leaders and about go-getters is that you can pretty much just, if you even have to tell them at all, you only have to tell them once. Hey, can we get this done? But it's different with followers. One of the problems that we have as leaders is that we communicate to followers who aren't necessarily go-getters as though we ourselves would want to be communicated to. So, like for me, if you want me to get something done, give it to me once, don't harangue me on it. I'll get it done for you. I'm great at getting tasks done. And so I tend to communicate that way. You probably find yourself doing the very same thing. You say it once, and then when it doesn't happen, you say, well, why isn't this happening? Now I want to talk to you a little bit about communication and the communication process, and then draw some ideas for us that you can apply starting tomorrow. But I want to go through the communication process just to drive home an idea with you that communication is not simple. You cannot just tell somebody something and expect them to get it. And then we're going to draw some very practical things out of it. When you have communication, you have... how's that? That looks pretty good. Got an eye there. And then you got another person here, and they've got... Hey, that turned out actually pretty good. And you got two people communicating, right? Now let's think through this communication process, because most of us as leaders, if we haven't thought through the communication process, we think to ourselves, well, I tell them, they hear, they do, and if they don't do, then, we've got problems. It's much more intricate than that. And one of the things that really helped me as a leader is when I realized the intricacy of it, and what I need to do to make sure that real, true communication takes place. The primary skill that you can learn is communication. Where does communication start? I would say it starts in the heart, or it starts in the soul, or whatever you want to call it, that internal part of us that is emotion-driven. One of the best lessons I ever learned, I was sitting in the hot tub at the Sammamish Club in Issaquah, and this salesman, a very sales-oriented guy, just sold his business for like $12 million. We were talking about the sales process. He said, Chris, learn this. Everybody makes decisions with their heart and justifies them with their logic. Everything is made in the decision level with their heart. How they feel about it, they justify it with logic. They love the smell of the leather and the sound of the roar of the engine, but they're always going to talk about gas mileage and torque. It starts in the heart. Now, from the heart, where does it go in the heart? Then where does it go? Then it goes up into the mind, right? And the mind has to take the heart and has to put words to it and has to put it into something that they can then begin to say. And at every one of these levels, there's the possibility of breakdown, which is most easily demonstrated in the next part here, which is it goes through the tongue. Now, how many times have you yourself said, or you've heard somebody else say, you're trying to communicate, you say, I'm just not saying what I'm thinking. Now, doesn't that seem strange to you? I mean, it's your tongue, it's your brain. Why can't you say what you're thinking? But there's a breakdown in the communication process at every single level. Now, from the tongue, and these are the things that are going to look really weird by the time we're done with them, but from the tongue, where does communication go? Where does it go? Ears. Almost every single person in these seminars says ears. It does not go into the ears. It goes into what I call circumstances. It goes to the circumstances. It's why if you tell one joke at a wedding, people will laugh. You tell the same joke at a funeral, people will say, that person's rude and I can't believe they said it. Same joke, same words. It's why if I were to invite you over to, say, a roasted pig, maybe I'm going to roast a pig in the back, and I invite you over, you might say, that sounds like fun. Can I bring my kids? You'll have a great time. But if you're Jewish and I invite you over to a roasted pig, you'd have different way of understanding it because of culture. Circumstances and the things that we communicate through have a direct effect. Now you might say, okay, put some legs on that, Chris, for work. What if somebody in your group that you're leading is having marriage problems? And you're trying to get them to do something, you're trying to power them up, and they've got this major thing that's taking place at home that you may not even know about. All of that resides through here. The effective leader, the strong leader, the extraordinary leader is a person who's constantly refining their communication process so that they understand this isn't just about me saying the words, you hearing it in the ear, and then moving on and getting it done. We understand that there's this process, and at every single level there is the potential for breakdown. From the circumstances then we go into the ear. That's a great looking ear. Goes into the ear. Now what's the problem with the ear? You might not even hear it right. You might be saying things to the people who follow you. They may not even be hearing you right. Goes from the ear. Where does it go from the ear? Goes into the mind. See, the human language that we use, the English language, has all these different meanings. Maybe what you're saying has a negative connotation to the person who's hearing it. And of course, from the mind then, it goes where? It goes down into the heart. Then they have to decide how they feel about it. And they will always make their decisions based on how they feel, and they'll justify it with logic. How do they feel about that? So you say, okay, Chris, what does all this mean? We've understood the process. We look at that, and it barely looks like anything I meant for it to look like. But what's the point? The point is, if you're going to be an extraordinary leader, you've got to take this issue of communication seriously. And I want to give you 3 different ways that you can do that. First of all is just understand the difficulty of it, so that you will take it more seriously, so that as a leader you will understand that you cannot just simply flippantly say, we need to do this. You need to say, I need to make sure that this gets across in the manner in which I meant for it to get across. Because it's neither right nor wrong that a person doesn't understand or doesn't grasp or whatever the breakdown happened. It just happened. Secondly, is an issue that I learned primarily from Professor Cotter at Harvard Business School. When he talks about in his book, Leading Change, he said the average leader thinks that they over-communicate. How many of you have thought in yourself, man, I'm just beating this to death, right? You think, I can't talk about it anymore. They're sick of listening to me. Through all the research, and I love reading his books because, you know, they've thrown the whole weight of corporate America and the money that Harvard Business School has to really do the research. He says the average leader under-communicates by a ratio of 1 to 100. The average organization, if you're the CEO or the president or whatever the title is, that's the leader of the organization, you might think you're beating a dead horse, and the fact is that you are probably under-communicating. You say, yeah, but I've talked about it 10 times. One of the things that you can do to begin to process and make sure your organization is getting the vision starting tomorrow morning is to communicate more often in more different ways. Maybe you communicate, and if you have 4 people that work under you, you ask them to communicate it twice a day, every day. Now you've implemented, you got 4 people, and they're now doing it 10 times a week. You're communicating 40 more times a week. You're getting it out there more and more. They might have 5 or 6 people underneath them, and you ask them to do it once a week. All of a sudden, you begin to multiply. You're sending the message and sending the message and sending the message, and you can start with that tomorrow. You can walk in there and say, I need to communicate this message. I need to get this message across. How can I do it? I can communicate more often through more different people. I can do it in more different ways. Memos, emails, I can put it on our website. We can make a video. Whatever you need to do, how can you communicate it more and more and more to become more effective? And the last piece that I would say in terms of communication is to become a better listener. To become a better leader is often to become a better listener. When was the last time you sat down with the people who follow you and you asked them to give you feedback? One of the things that I've done a few times over my career is I've sat down with the staff that served with me. The last time was about 5 months ago. And I said, for the next hour, I'm going to sit here with a legal pad. And I'm going to give you one by one your opportunity to tell me what you think my strengths are, what you think my weaknesses are, what you think I'm doing right, what you think I'm doing wrong, what you think I should stop doing, and what you think I should never stop doing. And I said, I will only ask very rarely a qualifying question. Like, okay, you said this, what do you mean by that? I will not give you any feedback, so your followers do not have to worry about, the wrath of the boss saying, well, that's not right, I didn't. Could you do that? Could you let them give you this honest feedback to tell you about your leadership skills? It's one of the most effective things you could do. You could do that tomorrow. You could walk in and say, we're going to take an hour. I want to become a better leader. I went to this leadership seminar yesterday, and I figured the people who could give me the best feedback are my followers. We're going to sit here for an hour. I got a legal pad. Will you please tell me? The second is hard decisions. Make hard decisions. I think that leadership is almost defined by the hard decisions you make. If you don't ever make a hard decision, if you don't ever make a decision, you're not leading, you're following. Now I'm going to ask you a question, because I've found that almost every single person I come in contact with has a hard decision that they're putting off. Now you say, what could I do tomorrow about hard decisions? Make one. You should make your decisions. And the reason you should make your decisions quickly is because if you put your decision off and it's wrong, what do you not have anymore? Time to correct it. If you make a decision early on and it's the right decision, it's the hard decision, you are that much further ahead. If you make the decision early on and it's the hard decision and you make that decision and it's the wrong decision, what do you have? Time to correct it. Here's my challenge to you today for tomorrow. I want you to literally right now pull out your pen, and I want you to write down what is the hard decision that I have been putting off, and write it down, and I'd like to encourage you to make that decision tomorrow, to go in and to do it. Make the hard decisions. That's what leadership is about. If you're not willing to make the hard decisions, because it's usually the hard decisions that are going to move your organization on further and further. If you're not willing to make the hard decision, your organization is just going to stop. Because it's usually the hard decisions that you make that open up the organization and allow you to move to the very next level. What is that hard decision? I would encourage you by the end of tonight to sit down and to write down what time you will make it, what you will do, and how you'll carry it out. Now, the third skill that I want to talk to you about is execution. I'm talking about carrying out your plan. How many of you remember a couple of years ago, Fortune magazine did a cover article called Why CEOs Fail? They went out and they did all this research, and they asked CEOs and organizations and the VPs who served underneath of them, what were the components of your overall drive, And what were the reasons in which you failed? And they went into it with a bias. They thought that it would probably be lack of vision. The writers went in, they thought it's probably a lack of vision, because vision is usually the thing that people talk about. Lack of vision, lack of goals, those kinds of things. What they found, the answer to why CEOs fail, is they didn't execute. They didn't carry out the plan. See, vision is almost this it's this overarching, overwhelming, over-talked about, pithy little thing. So much so that George Bush Sr. called it the vision thing. Now that's sad in a way, because vision is very, very important. But what is vision if you never do it? See, again, I get down to this idea of action. What will you do tomorrow when you go into work? How many of you could probably, if I were to pull you up here on stage, could in a short, brief moment of time, 30 seconds, give me the vision of your organization? Raise your hand. How many of you could tell me what the vision of your organization is? But then let me ask you this. How many of you are actually carrying it out? How many times have you been part of an organization that spent 6 weeks, 6 months, or a year going through the development of a vision statement or a mission statement? And then you get it drawn up in calligraphy and you get it framed and it goes in everybody's office, and then you never do it. It happens over and over and over and over again. So you've got 3 skills so far. You've got communication. Do it more often, understand the difficulty of it, and listen. You've got making hard decisions. What is the hard decision that you are going to have to make tomorrow when you go back into that office? You've got execution. What can I do tomorrow? Maybe you've got this vision. What can you do tomorrow? You're not going to execute the whole plan tomorrow, but what can you do tomorrow to start the execution of the process? One simple step. The first step. Life is not made in huge jumps. It's made in step by step by step. Now the last one, realistically assess your employees. Now here's why. Many, many people are in the wrong position. They're just in the wrong position. They're good people. They're great people. You put them in the right position, they would execute in the finest ways. But we're frustrated, and they're frustrated because they're in the wrong position. It's the leader's job to realistically assess whether or not that person is in the right position. Now think about all the things that go into this. I know you're thinking, oh man, you probably all have a name. That person is in the wrong position. But I can't say anything to them because, all heck would break loose. But that takes us back to the second point, hard decisions. I would imagine that tomorrow, if you were to go in and to be a strong, extraordinary leader, there might be people you need to let go. You need to say, you know what? It just isn't a fit. It causes me pain. It causes you pain. It causes the organization pain. But you know what? The best thing that's ever going to happen to you is if you're going to be let go and to go do something else. I learned a great lesson from a guy that I've had the opportunity to become friends with. His name is Bob Paquin. He is the COO of a company called Blue Nile. He used to be the COO of LL Bean. I heard him give a speech once, and he said, he was talking about all these hard decisions, and he talked specifically about firing people and all the wonderful things that have come out of his history in firing people. Now you think, well, maybe he must be just a sadist if he's going to just get joy out of firing people. He said, no, it's because the only people that ever got fired were people that didn't belong there anyway. They were frustrated. I was frustrated. The organization was frustrated. And most people say, well, I'm too nice of a guy. I'm too nice of a lady. I can't go in and fire somebody. That would be beyond my scope. Bob said something really interesting. He said, I can't tell you how many times I've walked in and said, I need to let you go. And in my job, I made the hard decision. I was a leader. I made the decision. I fired the person. And when 5 o'clock rolled around, I took him out to dinner and I helped him do his resume and get a new job. You can still be a good person. You can still be a good human being to make that hard decision and to move people into the right position. And he